The streets are teeming with Blade Runners attacking from every angle. Wallace Corp has Los Angeles under its private microscope, scalpel at the ready. The city is reeling from the return of replicants just a year ago, and one controversy could spark an anti-replicant brushfire, rallying the seething mobs into an outright civil war, with humans and Nexus on both sides. You're a member of the Replicant Underground, a decentralized network of independent rebels, dismantling the machine one cog at a time. At least that's the premise of Blade Runner, the role-playing game, Replicant Rebellion from Free League Publishing. And I'll have my review right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'll be sharing my review of Blade Runner, the role-playing game, Replicant Rebellion from Free League Publishing. This is written by Joe LaFavi with Tomas Harenstam. Artwork is provided by Martin Grip, Aaron Eric, Johan Noir, David Brazgala, and Gustav Ekelund. The 176-page hardcover with PDF is arriving in stores on May 26th. It's going to carry an MSRP of $39.99. The PDF should be out around that same time over at DriveThruRPG. I'm going to guess for $19.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Replicant Rebellion for Blade Runner, the role-playing game. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Free League Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside. Then lastly, the final portion of Replicant Rebellion does contain 5 scenarios, 5 operations that will connect into a campaign. So if you're a player and your game master has received their copy of Replicant Rebellion because they backed the Kickstarter, or maybe they've pre-ordered this, there are going to be some minor spoilers ahead. So I'm just warning you right up front. Now, of course, if your game master has been kicking around pre-ordering this, let them know about this review. That way they can approach Replicant Rebellion and make a far more informed buying decision. All right. Gotta say, I really like these end papers of Los Angeles. First thing we'll do, though, is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life, so let's give credit where credit is due. Replicant Rebellion is the highly anticipated supplement for Blade Runner, the role-playing game. And to be very honest, this had a very successful Kickstarter and then was delayed quite a bit, more than a year, actually, right now. In fact, by the time it arrives in stores, it'll be 15 months late on fulfillment. And yes, there have been some folks out there online who have been very vocal in their displeasure about the length of time it's taken for them to receive their backer copies. But as far as I understand, backers all have their copies, and now the reviewers are getting copies. We are going to start off with information about the setting. Now, this is taking place during the year 2037, which puts it right between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. And there's lots going on that's going to be told from the perspective of a member of the Replicant Underground. It's a little different than before because with the prior releases we've had, the point of view is from law enforcement or Blade Runners. Not so here. So we're going to start off once again with some additional background info, and then we are going to move into our new character creation rules, because with Replicant Rebellion, you can now role play as a replicant. Funny enough, there aren't huge differences between humans and replicants. If you're playing as a replicant, one of your upgrades that you're taking with your attributes after character creation has to be in strength or agility. That's it. That's really all you have to worry about as far as the character creation. Of course, role playing is going to be quite different. So we do have 6 new archetypes as well as new specialties. We've got some fresh gear. We also have new skills, info about handlers and hideouts. We'll get more into that as we talk about the various different operations later on in the book. But as far as our archetypes, we get the doctor, which must be a human. We also have the powdered keg, the power broker. We have the siren, which is actually a very cool archetype because it's kind of a mix of geisha, assassin, manipulator. Now, sirens must be replicants. They cannot be humans. So as far as the new archetypes, doctor has to be human, siren has to be replicant. The rest can be human or replicant. So then we're going to have the street rats, and we're going to finish up with the tank. So the breakdown from our archetypes, it'll tell us what the key attribute for that archetype is, key skills, their Chin-Yen points, what is their specialty. So like the tank could be a killer, martial artist, or a tough. What is their cover? We've got some random names here, although there's only 3. Different gear, appearance, and what is their home? Pretty easy to jump on into Blade Runner, the role-playing game. Then we're going to get into some information about some of the movers and shakers of Los Angeles. We also have some info, it's repeated a couple of times, about what sets a Blade Runner adventure apart from other science fiction or cyberpunk adventures out there. So that's one of the things that I think kind of makes Blade Runner, the role-playing game, a bit more challenging to game master and to play, because there are some various different emotional aspects, some dramatic aspects to really get the most out of a Blade Runner role-playing game adventure that the GM and the players have to engage in, that they're probably not, comfortable with or familiar with doing at the game table. So I just want to float that out there, because if you don't engage in certain tropes that you would find in a Blade Runner story, then you're not really playing a Blade Runner adventure. So we've got the commissioner, we got the governor, some info about them, megacorps, talk about operations, how operations are broken up. Heat is a new rule. So, of course, because you're part of the Replicant Underground, you have a cover. And if that cover is going to be compromised, you've got kind of a heat gauge. How close are you to being discovered? Turf, where their homes are, embeds, and so forth. We do get a little bit of new gear, not a ton, but we do get some new weapons and such. And then we're going to move on into our operations. Here's some of the gear. Something I thought was pretty wild, and I guess I'll talk about the production quality for a moment here. Production quality, excellent. It's what we expect from Free League Publishing. Nice, thick paper stock. There is a little bit of a sheen here. That's why you are seeing some glare from the lighting. Artwork throughout, really like it a ton. Funny enough, a lot of the NPCs, the artwork you can see draws from real actors and actresses and entertainers. So right here, that looks like Harrison Ford, even though it's not Decker. Let's see who else. Right here, Zoe Kravitz. There's one that's Josh Brolin, another that's Mark Hamill, Timothy Chalamet. I think that's how his name is pronounced. I'm probably wrong, though. There you go. And it looks a little like Mark Hamill there. I thought that's pretty wild. I appreciate that they don't look exactly like the actors and actresses, because then that just starts looking kind of creepy. I have seen some AI utilized in role-playing game books where the artwork all features like Keanu Reeves and stuff like that, and like Walter Goggins. I'm like, what? No. All right. Once again, here are key themes to a Blade Runner adventure or operation: sci-fi action, character drama, political intrigue, moral conflict. I think that's one aspect that's a little tough for some GMs and players, as well as defiance. Then we'll get the anatomy of the operations. Once again, there are 5. They will tie together into a campaign. Start off with the setup, activation, briefing, timeline, preparations, assets, and our NPCs. We'll also get the locations, operation events, and our final confrontation. Remember, I think there's an outcome box also. As far as production quality, once again, I am not a fan of light print on dark background. I would have preferred if the entire book was like this. I know a lot of folks out there are going to say, hey, there's a lot of empty space on these pages. I get it. Not as bad as we've seen some of the Alien, the role-playing game releases that have come out. But yes, there is some empty real estate on these pages too. But like this, I can read it just fine. It's just when you have a lot of it, it starts to make your eyes tired, at least mine. So just kind of giving you an idea here. So we're going to start off with our first operation. One of the movers and shakers of the Replicant Underground has been arrested, and the team of player characters is going to bust her out while she's being transported to another location. So that is our first operation. Then we're going to learn a bit more about some illegal activities that are taking place that tie into the underground. Oh, there we go. There's Josh Brolin. Later on, we've got an adventure where suddenly the underground thinks that the player characters are traitors. So there's an execution order that's been given out. Then later on, of course, the player characters can prove that they're innocent, that they are not traitors to the cause. And then we have a finale that's pretty cool. It takes place in a courtroom, justice for all. And of course, you can see here that we've got maps, timelines. These are operation events. You can roll for those randomly, or you can choose as the game master which ones you like and utilize those. There's our NPCs. Pretty wild, pretty cool. So the finale is in a courthouse. So right there. So I said courtroom. I meant to say courthouse. And that is how we will wrap up. We also have an index and player character sheets. That is a peek inside Blade Runner, the role-playing game, Replicant Rebellion from Free League Publishing. Swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I do want to begin by mentioning, I think Free League Publishing has kind of shot themselves in the foot with Blade Runner, the role-playing game. What I mean by that, the core book came out in 2023. It was a hit. I reviewed it. I thought it was great. It won any awards. We got some other content that came out I liked. I wasn't blown away by, but I did like it. And then we had the Kickstarter for Replicant Rebellion and the asset kit with solitaire rules, and then nothing. So we've gone well over a year without any sort of content whatsoever for Blade Runner, the role-playing game, and I'm very surprised by that. Now, if you happen to watch my live stream, on occasion I have mentioned I think that Free League Publishing is getting stretched a bit thin, and I think it shows here. I think there are cracks beginning within Free League Publishing where they've got maybe too many irons in the fire, because I don't hear anybody talking about Blade Runner, the role-playing game, anymore. It is not in the gamer consciousness, except for those who backed the Kickstarter, or now thanking their lucky stars that their book has arrived or is in transit. But everybody else, no, not at all. And the thing is, Blade Runner, the role-playing game, is not an easy game to game master or to play. I don't mean that mechanically. I mean it thematically, because of the different things that make a Blade Runner story, not necessarily things that people tend to role play at their game table. The moral dilemmas, the dramatic interchanges that are going to be taking place. Those, for a lot of gamers out there, that's something new. Because a lot of people, they sit down, they want to roll dice, they want to bash monsters. They don't necessarily want to start dealing in existentialism and about the meaning of being a human being. Other people absolutely love that. And that's what Blade Runner, the role-playing game, is for. But I think that the delay in fulfillment has really hurt not just this book, but Blade Runner, the role-playing game overall, as far as the public perception of the game. So let's talk about the book itself. I do like the book. Production quality, excellent. Fantastic paper stock. Yeah, it's got a little more sheen than I would like, but that's okay. Artwork, I dig. I appreciate the fact that a lot of the portraits for the NPCs look like they're inspired by real people without actually being portraits of those real people to make it look creepy. So I thought that was kind of fun there. The operations themselves, they're solid. They didn't blow my socks off, but I think it's a decent campaign that could be a good amount of fun in the right hands. In the wrong hands, probably just kind of ho-hum. But I am also a bit surprised that role-playing as a replicant isn't a little more flashy, I guess I would say, because playing as a human, playing as a replicant, kind of the same. And I'm a bit surprised that Free League Publishing didn't sort of buy into the replicant experience a little heavier, because the Replicant Underground is made up of humans and nexuses. It's not just replicants. So you could easily have a team who is all human, who is part of the Underground. Not a big deal, but once again, I was a little surprised that it's just not a little more flash and dash being a replicant as opposed to being a human being. I do like and recommend Replicant Rebellion. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Blade Runner, the role-playing game, Replicant Rebellion, a 7.5 out of 10. If you're running Blade Runner and you're really into it, yes, this is a must-have. You should really add it to your collection. I do wish certain aspects of this book had been approached differently. I do wish role-playing as a nexus was a little flashier. All right, that is it for this time out. If you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate link at the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. To do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal and become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. When you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for our latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. And of course, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Because ringing that bell and hopefully selecting all notifications is going to tell you whenever I share videos such as this review. But it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, which airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central, is streaming live. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.